Mr. Secretary, thank you again for having
Leo,
us here
thank
and
you.
getting to chat a little bit about what's happened in the last year and the last 4 years under the Biden administration. Your job is to oversee VA to make sure the benefits are going out to take care of it's crisis control in a lot of different ways. My job is to press you on this and to look at not always the negatives, but a lot of the shortfalls and things like that. Do you feel like that we as a country talk enough about the point that you raised about veterans being community leaders? You and I have both seen studies that say veterans are more likely to be volunteers. They're more likely to be involved in civic service afterwards. We see all these positives, but because of the nature of the demands of this job, you're mostly focusing on what are the gaps and how do I fill those in? Do we need more attention on that positive aspect, that aspect of what veterans are bringing to America even after service?
There is a narrative that is so inaccurate that somehow veterans are broken. That is not my lived experience, right? Look at these newly elected members of Congress in the last couple of terms. Look at business leaders across the country. Look at who are the coaches for your kids? Who are the ministers at who are the electors at your parish? You know what I mean? Who are the youth ministers at your parish? It's vets. These people aren't broken. They're fixing a broken community in many places. They're fixing spots where America is breaking, and they're refusing to let that happen. So that, I think, collectively, we owe the country a clearer story on. And this is why every time I've appeared before you in the press briefing room, I've had VA providers talking about programming that's successful. Every time I testify before Congress, I have a story about a VA person, a VA employee, and a veteran. Because sometimes I think we don't lift up, or at least I want to lift up those stories where VA is working well and where veterans are doing awesome work. What does that mean about, the next secretary or my time here? I don't know. But what I do know is veterans are kicking ass all over this country. We got to do a better job keeping up with them, making sure they have what they need. And the country is stronger for them. And those veterans out there who are wrestling with crisis, if they, as too often we hear, are feeling like they're a burden, let me just be very clear to them. You're what this country needs. You're not a burden. You are the strength of this country.
Another major priority, not just for your administration, but for the last several, has been suicide prevention among veterans, which we haven't seen, unfortunately, the same progress on. At this point, what needs to happen? How does that number start to come down?
It is stubbornly high, maddeningly high, and heartbreakingly high, right? Especially when you think about what, in so many cases, we see veterans saying, as they're struggling with crisis and as they're contemplating death by suicide, they feel like they're a burden. And think about that, about how we're missing the boat here, where people who have given everything to protect this country, and when you go around the country, you know this as well as I do, and I say this as a non-veteran, every time there's something interesting happening in a community, city, a state, around the country, inevitably there is a veteran involved, inevitably. So we need to tell veterans that you are not a burden. In fact, you're why we're the strength that we're as strong as we are, and we need you now more than ever. So what needs to happen beyond that? One, we have to continue to underscore what we prove every day here at VA, which suicide is preventable, okay? And I want veterans to hear that. In your moment of maximum crisis, suicide is preventable. Second, we have to continue to dedicate the resources So many of our veterans who die by suicide have not been diagnosed with mental health disorder, are not in relationship with VA. So we have to make sure that we are getting them into relationship with us. For example, we established in the last year's Suicide Prevention Annual Report a correlation between veterans who get their VA benefits, that $187 billion I talked about a minute ago, are correlated to lower suicidality. So if you're in a relationship with a VBA, with Veterans Benefits Administration, you're less likely to die by suicide. So resourcing is important. Third is engaging the entire community. I think we've made good progress, and hats off to John Tester and John Bozeman, Mike Bost, Mark Takano, Phil Rowe, whom I called about this just about 6 weeks ago, who put together the Fox grants, the Sergeant Gordon Parker Fox grants to local organizations who are supporting veterans in their communities. That's based on the simple knowledge that, the simple fact that we don't possess all knowledge here in the nation's capital. Our local communities who know their veterans are best positioned to know what our veterans are struggling with, so let's invest in them. So intentionality, resourcing, strengthening the entire ecosystem, and then making sure that veterans understand suicide is preventable. And we prove this every day for you. We just have to keep doing it.